Hello and welcome to Comics with Cody. This is part 2 of my Green Lantern collection. My history with comic books is brief. I mentioned that in the first episode. I only recently started collecting comic books in the last year or two. I've always been a fan of superheroes. Who isn't a fan of superheroes? I wish I'd been collecting comic books a lot longer. I wish I'd been buying them as a kid. I wish they'd been cheaper when I was a kid, and the prices are even higher now. And I know the prices of printing has gone up, but I think that's one of the big problems with comic books right now is that they're just getting a little too expensive. When you got a little kid going into a store and spending $5 or $6 on one comic book that's half advertisements, I think that's a problem. I think that's a huge problem because kids, that's where comic book fans come from, and I think that's where we're struggling really, really badly right now. Whereas if in the late 80s and early 90s, comic books were selling through the roof, it was just a different culture, and hopefully we can get that turned around. Because I know DC Comics has been really struggling, and I think Marvel's sales are even less than DC. So, hopefully comic books can become a big thing again. Because I just recently got into them, and I want everybody else to be into them too, because they're so cool. It's like trading cards, but with more than just a card. You've got a whole book, you've got a story. So cool. All right, we're getting things started today at Green Lantern number 76, because last time we left off with 75. So this is Green Lantern 76. Now I said everything I know about Green Lantern in episode 1, so hopefully I can find something to talk about today. I do want to talk about some of the places where I purchased comic books. I mentioned STL Comics last time. Again, they just got their own location since I started shopping there. They moved out of their old location into their new place, which I need to go see. Another place that I found comic books was half-price bookstores. I've seen that recommended by a few people doing comic book videos here on YouTube, and it was absolutely the best recommendation because half-price bookstore has comic books as low as a quarter per issue. And so I picked up tons of great comic books at the half-price bookstore at a really low price. One place I didn't get to check out, just because of the time of year when I was doing my comic book shopping, most of it, was flea markets. And I'm sure that flea markets would have been a good place, maybe yard sales too. That's probably where you're gonna find the coolest stuff and maybe the most valuable stuff accidentally out at a yard sale. That's like the dream, I guess, is that you stumble upon somebody who's selling the $1 million book, but they have no idea what they have. Fairly unlikely to happen, I would imagine. But antique stores were a great place to find comic books. However, one thing that I found about antique stores was you had situations where books were maybe only worth $1 or $2, and people had priced them at like $10. So that's maybe not the cheapest place to find comic books, but that really depends because usually antique stores have various vendors, and various vendors have various pricing models. You just never know. So that might be a good place to check it out too if you are interested in getting into comic books. It certainly worked out that way for me. eBay was pretty cool. I bought a lot of mystery book boxes where you would maybe get 25 or 50 comic books for all the comics fell over. But you would get 25 or 50 comic books in a box. And it would be really priced reasonably, maybe 25, 50 cents a comic. You never know what you're going to get in that situation. I found so long as you got the ones that were pretty well reviewed, you would probably get a box of about half of what you would find cool. And hey, that's neat, I'm glad I have that. And about half a box of, okay, well, I don't need this. And I've seen people within the comic book community online call those kinds of books as trash. Just throw it away. But I don't understand that, because even if it's not a book that I want or it's not a series that I collect, I still find it interesting just to have. And you never know, the artwork might be good, the story might be good, it might be from some indie, independent comic book creator who's not famous yet, but will be famous tomorrow. Or, you know, sometimes it's just old junk from a long time ago. And it's interesting to see what was considered entertaining at the time and how comic books have changed. A lot of the old comic books have old advertisements, and it's really interesting to me to see how advertising has changed, how some of the bigger corporations have changed their advertising styles, and just old advertising artwork can be really fascinating too. Sometimes it's done in the comic book style, sometimes it isn't. The thing about these older comic books, I'd say pre-2000, is you're not getting as many advertisements, and that is something to really be grateful for. I remember even as a kid when I did buy a couple of comic books, not really when I was collecting, but I did manage to, talk my parents into buying me an issue or two. I bought them from a movie gallery, a movie rental place here in my hometown, and they were probably $3 or maybe $3.50 at the time. And I just remember even as a kid being so disappointed because you open it up and you've got very little story and you've got a lot of advertisements. And it seemed like, for a little bitty book, that was not really worth $3. And now the prices have gone up even more. The best thing about comic books is how they fall over in the box. This is Green Lantern number 111. So these older books, what I was getting at is they have less advertisements, it takes up less of the book, and in general, the books themselves are longer. They have more pages, the page counts. So you're getting more bang for your buck. And especially now, when you can go into a comic book store and find these in the back stock, the dollar bins, you can get this for $1, whereas if a brand new book is maybe $6, you're getting more pages here, less advertisements, and you're probably getting better stories. I've seen that it's a controversy that a lot of newer comic book stores are not holding old books, not selling older books. That seems maddening to me. That seems insane to me because this is where it's at. The place I went, STL Comics, at the time, they didn't carry new books, which, from what I've heard, seems to make a lot of sense because getting new books and the way the distribution works for comic book retailers is even more insane than anything else I've talked about so far. Because basically the comic book store has to buy so many issues from the publisher, and they basically have no guarantee on getting their money back. Usually when a retailer like that buys books, they buy so many books, they sell them, and whatever doesn't sell, they can send back to the publisher and they get a fairly decent return on that. In the comic book industry, that's not how that works. They have to buy so many and then they're completely responsible. And I think maybe if they do have a return back system, the percentage is not right. You'd have to ask somebody that knows more about that than me. Like I said, I'm just getting into comic books. I do not know everything. I do not know a lot of things, but I do know some things, and I watched a few documentaries right here on YouTube, which is what's inspired me to do this right now. Green Lantern 121. This should be getting closer to the early 2000s, I believe. Or maybe the mid-90s. Nope, right here, March 2000, Green Lantern 122 with effigy. I really can't recommend comic books enough, and I wish comic book stores were more available, because in a lot of places, they're less available than they are here where I'm at. And it's just really sad because you used to find comic books just in, you know, your regular stores, your grocery stores, your gas stations. There they go again. And of course they were cheaper. They were cheaper back then. And so I think, you know, you'd have kids standing in line at the gas station while their parents are checking out. Hey, mom, dad, can I have this like 50-cent book? Can I have this $1 book? Even a $1 book, you know, is not so bad. I think in a modern day, maybe $2. I don't know. I can't believe that they're over $5 though. That's just, it's not good. It's not a good thing. Green Lantern 132, January 2001. Pretty cool. I said this once before, I'm not sure if it's in this video or the last one, but Green Lantern number 133, I really like that cover. But comic books are kind of like trading cards because, you know, you get this, it's just like a trading card. You got a front and a back and it's really cool, you collect it. But then you also get to open it up carefully and you get to see the story inside and even more artwork. And so that was a big appeal for me when I first started wanting to collect the floppies, the floppy comic books, the actual issues. Because before that, I'd really just been collecting the trade paperbacks, which seemed really ideal to me because you go back and get all the old issues in one collection. But that can get expensive. It really can. And I think this probably was more viable in every way, buying them like this. But the way I talked myself into that was looking at it like these are trading cards, except they're better. And that's not to, you know, offend anybody that's into trading cards. I used to love Yu-Gi-Oh! And I started to do Magic the Gathering and all that kind of stuff. And of course, there's no game to be played with comic books. But I don't know, there's just something of value here. And they're becoming an overlooked medium. So I'm just, I don't know, I'm shilling for the comic book industry, of which I am not part of. But I love, that one's really cool, 144. All right, we're at 147 and 148 and 149. Ooh, there's Soups. Superman, the red and blue. Wonder what's going on there. Standoff, guest starring the JLA. I gotta read some Justice League stuff. I haven't read a lot of team books. Since I started reading comic books, I've read Batman and Superman. You know, I've read a lot of the big ones like Watchmen. I've read The Long Halloween, of course, Dark Knight Returns, and all of the rest of Frank Miller's Dark Knight. They call it the Dark Knight Returns universe or Dark Knight universe. Oh, these are gonna start falling over really bad on me. Okay, ooh, Green Lantern 150. I always like those big incremental numbers, you know, 150 and 100. So those are cool. Okay, this is Green Lantern 152, 153, I said it once and I've said it before. I'll say it again, that I was not in this to collect expensive books. And it seems like that is the goal for most collectors, which I think is really cool, because frankly, that opened up more room for me and what I did want to do, what I have done. But a lot of people that collect comic books are more into collecting the key issues, the issues of the comic book where the big events happen, where the important things happen, where a character debuts for the first time, those sorts of things. And those books can get so expensive. You know, they can run up into thousands and millions of dollars, but of course they can run hundreds of dollars easily, many of them. Even just books that cost, you know, $50 or $20. And so what I knew right away was that was locking me out of buying Golden Age books, certainly, but probably also from buying Silver Age comic books. If you don't know, the Golden Age, of course the people argue about this, but the Golden Age of books would have been like from the 30s, maybe into the 50s. And the Silver Age would have been in the 50s and the 60s. The Bronze Age kind of getting its start in the 70s and the 80s. And then you get, the Modern Age in the 90s. And they break it up in so many different ways, and everybody's got their own opinion about it. I had a lot of fun watching YouTube videos with people's differing opinions on where the ages go. But I mean, it's all just kind of figurative. It's not literal. But I knew that my price points was gonna keep me out of getting Silver Age books because they're too old, they're too rare, they're too important, and they're too expensive. So I just didn't even think about that. To be honest, I didn't know what I was going to find in the dollar bins. I didn't realize that there was going to be all these full runs that you can get. Here's 68, next up is 69. You know, you can get books in order, you can get enough to tell the story, and you might miss the key issues if you have to. I hate to say this because I've been advocating for physical printing and physical collecting. If you have to, you can read the key issues either in a trade paperback where they've been collected after the fact or on a digital version. Do the trade paperback if you have to. All right, this is Green Lantern 173. And ooh, here's a little run, 74. I like the art on that one. Here's Green Lantern 175 and 76 and 77. Oh no. Disaster has struck. Okay, they started falling over. Excuse me while I duck out of frame. I couldn't decide how to do a comic book video. I don't really have the kind of setup where I can maybe do two cameras at once, one on me and one on the books. So I'm just doing the classic holding it up and showing you. It's not going too bad. We'll see how it goes in future episodes. I can't wait to do other characters. Some of my favorite characters are coming up in future episodes. All right, this is actually the end of that particular comic book, Green Lantern, that started at number 1 in the first video and number 0. This is number 181, which is the last issue of that before they rebooted it for the New 52, I think is what they first rebooted it for. But this is the last issue of that. So it was really cool to pick up this and to have number 181. I'm missing key issues in there. I'm missing even some other cheap issues I'll have to pick up eventually. But I got a pretty good run at getting the entire run, which was exciting for me because again, hardly any of these cost more than $2. Most of them under $1. I do have some of the New 52s. I don't know that I'll show all those on there. You know, I've got number 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's see, it's up to 14 after that, and 34. It's not that I wasn't interested in getting newer comic books, but the thing about those particular books is that I do have trade paperbacks, and that was kind of my chosen way of collecting that part of the story. I hate that they used the movie for the cover of this because there's another version of this that was printed. This has, you know, the first of so many issues. The way they do these trade paperbacks is they take the issues, maybe 4 or 5 of them, and put them in little volumes. I wish I would have got the other version, but I have that. And then this is Rebirth, comes after that, I think. I think these are in order for the most part. No Fear, Revenge of the Green Lanterns, Wanted Hal Jordan, the Sinestro Corps War, both volumes of that, and Rage of the Red Lanterns is where I left off. I know that's leading up to one of the biggest events in comic books, Blackest Night, which I hear is really exciting. I haven't got up to that yet. You know, collecting is as collecting does. and it'll get there when it gets there. But that's why I don't have as many of the new comic books after the ending of the 90s run. This has been Comics with Cody. This is my Green Lantern collection. I hope this was fun. I hope you'll join us again next time. Leave a like and a comment below. Let me know what you think about Green Lantern, and we'll see you next time.